He's the hot dog. Mick Foley. I think you're standing on the cord. There we go. There. Hey, someone have a chair I can use it? I should know not to say that after having been in ECW. I'm probably frequently, oh good, yeah, high chair and a low chair would be good for me. There you go. I appreciate it.
There we go.
Yeah, do both of it. Yeah. I may have to defend myself. Does anybody know, like, just going off on a tangent here, if you check out the words ECW and May I Have a Chair, you see this unusual video. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Yeah. I was in a match with Terry Funk with an N, in case anybody's keeping track. One time a show. Did you know that about the Foley 1 F-bomb rule? One time a show, so I'm not going to use it up there. It's Funk with an N. We fought off the Public Enemy together. He hit the ring, and then Terry said to me, he goes, ask them for a chair. And I said, give me a chair. And it began literally raining chairs in the 300, you can look it up, it was ridiculous. It was so surreal, I just sat and watched it until I got hit in the head with one of those chairs. And then I was working on that sound system there? Okay, we're going to be alright. Alright, bad news is, I'm kind of tied to the stage here, so I can't be as active as I would normally be during the course of my shows, okay? So I won't be able to prowl the stage cat-like like I usually do, alright? I'm kind of stuck here, but what we're going to do, we're going to tell some cool wrestling stories. It's not stand-up comedy. So I know some people are worried, like, what's it going to do? Do you tell jokes? And the answer is no, I don't tell jokes. I don't do things like come out and say, knock, knock.
Who's there?
Well, I just told you, I'm not going to tell the punchline to a joke I have no intention of telling. But now that you mention it, knock, knock.
Who's there?
Al Snow.
Al Snow who?
Exactly. Boom. Now what I do is I quickly survey the room, see who's not laughing, and then I know they're not wrestling fans. You need to take a little bit of wrestling knowledge, know that Al is a lightly regarded, unloved wrestler. It's not really true. Do we have some non-fans here? Yeah! All right, you know what's cool? We do usually get non-fans, they're just not usually that enthusiastic about it either. It's usually like the guy pointing behind his wife's back. Like, yeah, her. And, oh, you brought that guy? Is he a wrestling fan? You brought, that's awesome, man. Okay, young man, would you like to stand up? Come on, there you go. Ah, there it is. Yeah. I wish either people here last year saw the Cheap Pop special. Anyone see the Cheap Pop special? Okay, 3 of you saw it. Yeah, it's a fairly clean show. It might get graphic with a few of the injuries we described, especially depending on how the Q&A goes. So I may ask your dad. Yeah, earmuffs. There you go. You knew about that, right? Okay. Occasionally, earmuffs. One more. I can't really take flashes because of the head injuries. Okay, so cool. But we'll all have a chance to take the photos afterwards. The meet and greet, right? Did you just buy that shirt today? No? Okay, cool. All right, yeah, we only have like 6 left, so we do have some photos for sale. No pressure on anybody to buy anything. You get a photo taken with me, sign your own object. The Q&A will probably go a little more extensively with the Q&A, and this is a great place, but it's not like the optimal place to do like a spoken word show because people's backs are turned and things like that. And I think we'll have more fun if we emphasize the Q&A part of it. So even if you're a non-fan, formulate a good question in your head, right? And whatever you do, don't begin your question with the words, did it hurt? when the Undertaker threw you off the cell?
Yes.
I've kind of been there
It
before.
hurt.
You mean it didn't tickle?
No. I will. How many of you saw SummerSlam? Did you realize that was my first time on TV in like 9 or 10 months, right? And I hesitated to be on the show. I was told, I got a text to say, hey, we're going over to Creative with Jon Stewart. We were wondering whether you could be part of the opening segment. And I really like to come back like with a segment that's got power to it, like the one I did with Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins last October. I mean, that was a powerful segment. And so I thought about it for a second. I sent a text back. I said, did John ask me personally? And they said, yeah, he did. I said, all right, I'll be there. So I got in the ring, and if you notice, especially if you go back, if you got it on DVD, or there's rumor of a new WWE network.
$9.99.
For an undisclosed monthly sum, what is it?
$9.99.
$9.99. Go back and watch SummerSlam, and you will see that as they come to me, I appear to be having like a wardrobe malfunction. And was toying around with my own hands in my mouth. Anybody see this? Now, what happened was, along the way, some of you know that my career largely consisted of things that could be categorized as stupid. I was in that cell match in 1998, and along the way, the teeth that were knocked out and put back in started becoming very discolored and had to be removed.
This guy right here.
You got it? There we go. I was told I couldn't keep my teeth because they'd be considered medical waste, not part of wrestling history. It's especially important to me that I keep the teeth because I wanted to turn them into a really cool set of earrings. That's the way I roll. That fashion sense. With the sweatpants, the Skechers, no socks, flannel shirt, and fanny pack.
Nice. In true Cape Cod fashion.
And I removed one of the teeth myself, and honestly was in the process of trying to knock out the other one with a ball peen hammer when my son gave the news and found a doctor who could remove my teeth and let me keep them. Removed them. All right, I'm sorry, you're not a wrestling fan, right? And now it's getting a little gross for you. I'm sorry about that. We'll go with colorful stuff here, okay? And right after this story, it lightens up considerably, all right? I was given a bottom flipper, okay? Because my son, who's 12 years old and honest to a fault, looked at me and he said, Dad, he goes, you look kind of cool with your top front teeth missing, but now you just look kind of like a crack addict. I said, thank you for your honesty, but I think you're looking for a meth addict. Those are the guys who tend to lose their teeth, right? I want this to be educational for the kids, right? So I got the bottom flipper put in, but it was very uncomfortable. And did you guys know anyone here wear partial flippers or anything like that, missing teeth? A couple of you, right?
Yes.
I mean, largely, they stay in by way of moisture, which creates a suction. So the thing is, I don't know, you can't tell now whether somebody's taking a photo or recording. And it looks like you're recording, right?
I'm trying to get a good picture.
Okay, well, we'll get a good one at the meet and greet, okay? Because I can't tell. And then what happens is somebody puts up a 40-minute clip on YouTube of Mick Foley at the Sandwich Taverna. And no matter how good it is, and make no mistake about it, this will be mediocre. It looks awful when it's on YouTube. So we just wait, and then WWE will eventually take whatever show I'm working on and put it on their network in brilliant high definition. But until then, just keep it down, okay? All right? Will you do that for me?
Sure.
Pretty sure Roger covered that, didn't he? All
Trying
right.
to get a good picture, that's all.
Okay.
No flash.
Come on up here and take one, and then ready? I'm posing for you. 5-second pose. There you go. All right. There we go. All right, where was I? Oh, yeah. So the suction, it's a suction that creates that allows you to keep the flipper in. But I didn't realize that when I went out there on live TV, I would become nervous. And when you get nervous, your mouth gets dry. And I took a deep breath 5 seconds before we went on the air, and I inhaled my partial flipper.
Oh, no.
No.
And so, when the camera went live, it looked like I was fumbling around. What I was actually trying to do was save my own life on national TV. It looked like I was applying the mandible claw to myself. Right? So what I'm going to do now that we've established I have the flipper in, and this is now, we definitely can't take pictures until the end. I'll put it back in when it's time for the meet and greet. In the meantime, I'm going to take it out so I can be a little bit more comfortable, okay? Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, good deal. One of the fun things about starting a new show out is seeing what works and what doesn't, and I've kind of been messing around the past week or so, and I've landed on some stuff that really worked, and then I found some stuff that didn't work at all. You try to get rid of that, try to stick with your strengths, and I realized that what I really wanted to talk about was like the magic of promos, because promos, short for promotional interviews, have been very important in my life, and I also realized when I was studying up and trying to find some new stories I might be able to tell on this tour. I took my own book on a flight to Ireland 2 weeks ago, and it was kind of weird because I was reading the book and I could see that the girl next to me on the plane was looking at me a little weird, and then she finally said, "Is that a picture of you?" And I said, yeah, it is. She goes, "Why is there a picture of you in that book?" I said, "Because it's a book about me." She said, "Who wrote it?" And I said, "I did." She said, "So you're reading a book about you that you wrote?" And I said, "That's correct." And I did come up with a couple of stories, but the main thing I took away from that flight and that reading experience was how much the career, how much Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, had meant to my career. It was amazing to me, this is just going back about 3 months. My youngest son, Huey, heard Dusty Rhodes give his legendary Hard Times promo for the first time. Has anyone heard the Hard Times promo?
Yes.
And there's an amazing rendition of Morgan Freeman doing it online, where he says, "Ric Flair, you don't know about hard times, Daddy." But when I showed the regular video to my son, he really became enamored and transfixed with it. Thought it was the greatest thing he'd ever seen, and he started getting to the point where he was memorizing it, and they wanted me to film it. And so we dressed him up like Dusty. I didn't have a blonde wig, so I used like an old wig I'd used to portray Santa Claus. And he had a cowboy hat on and like 8 Band-Aids, you know, because he's being Dusty Rhodes. And it was like, it was so emotional for me. I'm going to give you a little bit of that interview if I could, okay? This is my own son. He's only 12 years old. He's given an interview that was given 18 years before he was even born, 30 years ago, 30 years.
Wow.
And he's giving the promo, he's going, "I admit, I do not look like the athlete of the day is supposed to look. My belly is just a little big. My hiney is just a little big. But brother, I am bad, and they know I'm bad." And there were 2 bad people in the world. One of them was John Wayne, he's dead, brother. The other one's the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. Brilliant, right? But if you had submitted that promo in writing to an English teacher, you would have gotten a C-. I could just see the comments, Mr. Rhodes, technically there were more than 2 bad people in the history of the world. I had to pick 2 of them. John Wayne probably wouldn't have been on the list. But it was just brilliant. It was brilliant. It was given with his heart and passion. And the saddest thing for me is that my son wanted to do it for Dusty. And even if you go back and you watch the Hall of Fame pre-show, on the red carpet, Eden Stiles, who's Dusty's daughter-in-law, said, "Dusty, you have to see Mick Foley's son. He does a ridiculous version of Hard Times." And I saw Dusty at an NXT thing. My son really wanted to do it. We got there a little bit late. And then after the show, I knew they were going to have a meeting. And so I went up to Dusty and I said, "How you doing, Dusty?" He's like, "I got to hear boy do this promo." And I said, "Next time, Dream, next time." And those are the last words I ever said to Dusty Rhodes. kind of sad, right?
Yeah.
So I started thinking and reflecting back on everything he taught me before I did the most dangerous move at that time in the history of wrestling, which was to take a power bomb on the concrete floor by a wrestler known as Vader. Vader, for those of you who don't know, I'm not talking about the happy-go-lucky, gee, it's great to be back on Raw Vader, who resurfaced a couple of years ago. Not that there's anything wrong with it. No, the Vader who used to cause human beings to look at the blackboard when their name was up against him, turn to their friends and go, yeah, I don't think this business is for me. And walk away never to be seen from again. And on that night, I was supposed to take a power bomb on the concrete floor. I know there are people out there, oh, wrestling's fake, all that. Nothing fake about the will I wrote out 3 hours before that match to my wife. I wrote out a handwritten will in the event that things didn't turn out well for me. And Dusty came up to me and said, I know you like to work on your promos, Bruce. What I'd like you to do is just go off and say, just think about it. Just speak from the heart that night. And that was a turning point for me. Turning point for my promos. And it was like, went on to be like the calling card for me, you know? And like, that was what I was known for when I went to that and the Wild Moves, WCW, ECW, later WWE. What I'd like to do is go through a Dusty Rhodes-inspired promo that did not work out particularly well. Possibly the worst promo ever given. It went something like this. I showed up, Center Stage Theater in Atlanta, Georgia in 1992. I'm getting ready to wrestle Sting. Can everyone still see me here? Yeah, kind of see me? And Dusty had a wooden crate. He wanted to know if there was something I could do to that wooden crate to symbolize what I would do to Sting's injured ribs in our pay-per-view match. And I said, what do you have in mind? He said, I was thinking maybe you could like put a boot through it. I said, Dusty, I think if I got a running head start, I could go through that wooden crate with a diving headbutt. He said, no, baby, I don't think you can. I said, I'm pretty sure I can. He said, I'm going on the record as saying you can't, but if you'd like to try, you can. And I went off like Dusty had taught me and thought about it and I visualized it. And when the time came and I had my match, and this is the way they used to do, you'd have matches and then you do your promos at ringside. So I already had some adrenaline in my system and I said, Sting, I'm Cactus Jack and this is your future. I backed up and I got a good like 3-4 step running head start and I took off getting good height for a guy with my complete lack of physical skills. And I have to tell you, all that visualization paid off because I went crashing through that wooden crate. But in all my visualizing, I never once thought of what might happen to my head after it went through that wooden crate. And the answer would be, drum roll please. Yeah, it bounced off the concrete floor like a basketball. At which point I tried to regain my footing and failed, and I fell back down on my butt like this. And Jim Ross tried to interview me. He gave me the microphone, at which point I said, and then he grabbed the microphone, showing why he belongs to the WWE Hall of Fame, and said, Cactus Jack is ready. And I looked dangerous despite never saying a word. And when I got to WWE, I was told that Mr. McMahon was a big fan of my promos. Turned out that was not true. Jim Cornette broke the news to me that he was not sure Mr. McMahon had ever actually seen one of my promos. And I only found out, this was last summer, he wasn't actually interested in me at all. Like I would call up once a year and see if WWE was interested in bringing me in. And every year, once a year, within 1 minute, I'd be dispelled with the line, we're not looking for talent. This wouldn't be Mr. McMahon talking to me, it'd be somebody working for him. And then I would watch Monday Night Raw, and I'd see guys debuting like Mantar and Duke the Dumpster Drozy. And I'd be like, I think they're lying to me. And it wasn't until last summer with Bruce Pritchard, who was Vince's right-hand man, told me that Vince had absolutely no interest in bringing me in until Jim Ross came on board as head of talent relations. Jim Ross began a very steady campaign on my behalf to the point where Mr. McMahon, in the fall of 1995 at a booking meeting, let me see, I don't think I can make it that far, so I'm just going to use my chair here to make a banging sound. So that Mr. McMahon slammed his hand down on the table and went, All right, damn it. I'll bring him in. But I'm covering up his face. Because the word he used to describe me, young man, this is what we call an adjective. The adjective he used to describe me was, another drum roll please. Seedy. Said I was seedy. And so in retrospect, like, for those of you who engage in conversations here, right here,
In Boston, Massachusetts.
we're like an hour and a half away from Boston. What's your geography? If I need geographical information, I'm not going to you, pal, all right? And I will pander to this audience by the time we're through. But not just yet, okay? If you're wondering on your way to the Taverna, like, I wonder what the deep, hidden, psychological meaning of the Mankind mask was, can I assure you, there was none! Just one billionaire's quest to cover up a young man's face. And in retrospect, it does explain a lot of things. It explains, for example, why he chose to dress me up from head to toe in brown. Brown. He dressed me up from head to toe in brown, telling me that only the Undertaker should wear black, and within a week, 3 other wrestlers entered the WWE wearing black. And so, we realize now, like, okay, head to toe in brown. Sent out to the ring with the dreariest entrance music of all time. I'm not talking about the peppy wreck by Jim Johnson that goes, the one we heard. I'm talking about the funeral dirge they wrote for me that I used my first 2 years. Okay? Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Cheer for the dreary music. And the reason that Roger told me, hey, we got your Cactus Jack music queued up. And then we played the Mankind music. If somebody asked, Roger, you know why we don't use the Cactus Jack music? You rarely hear it. And somebody asked me this, like, a couple weeks ago, how come we never hear the Cactus Jack music? And I said, well, because I was turned into Cactus Jack on very short notice, they hadn't enough time to create their own Cactus Jack song, so they just used something in the public domain, which meant it was available to anyone. And the last time I saw somebody using Cactus Jack's music, it was in a porn film starring a dwarf.
Wow.
You can look it up on YouTube. And so, yeah, some of the dreariest entrance music of all time. With all the flash and dazzle of a UPS delivery truck. Not even the slightest hint or suggestion of a pyrotechnic display. Last night I was privileged to have, and let me put the senior here first, so you don't think I'm talking about the WWE guys, start booing them. John Cena Sr. was in attendance. One of the greatest guys you'll ever meet. If you guys have a chance to see John Cena Sr. as Johnny Fabulous on the independent scene. Has anyone seen him? Oh, he's amazing, right? He's one of the best, and it's just such a mind blower to think that the most famous wrestler in the world's dad is out there as a manager in New England on the independent scene. Great guy, and it hurt me to say this in front of him, but I was like, you know what I saw? All my time in WWE, like, I love John Cena, I really do. I know it's not a popular notion here. Love the guy, but I've seen him, like, walk down to the ring at WrestleMania with an Air Force marching band, with a full gospel choir in Atlanta, Georgia, with 50 John Cena clones. And now that we have that network for the undisclosed monthly sum,
$9.99.
look it up. You can see John Cena piloting his own spacecraft onto his stage at the Royal Rumble. And all that time, you know what I got? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No fireworks, no dry ice. Even Gilbert got a sparkler. But luckily, when I was in WWE, that's much better, right? Mr. McMahon came to realize that the real life story I had to tell as Mick Foley was more interesting than the fictional one we created as Mankind. And one of the key elements to this realization was a conversation that I had with Shawn Michaels, where we were having some great matches, and he loved working against this really dark character. Mankind in 96 and 97 was a very dark character. Not to be confused with the lighter-hearted guy with the socks who teamed up with, there we go, excellent, with The Rock, right? And Shawn asked me when I was, is this what you envisioned for yourself, this type of character? I said, no, not really. He said, well, what did you envision? I said, I thought I would be you. He got a little confused. I said, not like the Heartbreak Kid, but I thought I was going to be like the eye candy for the chicks. And I gave myself the name Dude Love. And what's really cool about the Dude Love thing is that what got me noticed, I don't advocate this for anyone, and these days WWE specifically gets rid of anybody doing any wrestling in their backyard. But I first started to get some attention. If this had been in the days of the internet, it would have gone viral. I got attention when I jumped off Danny Zucker's roof. Anyone remember this in 1985? And what's so cool about it is Danny's sister is here as my special guest, and it was your roof, and I actually went over there like with your mom's permission for WWE, and like stood up on top of the roof for one of the videos, so it was really cool. And he found out that I always wanted to be this character, Dude Love. And he became really fascinated with the idea that I'd had this outside life and that the character I had designed myself had never been dreary. And he wanted me to explain that to the audience. He wanted me to come out and do it like I'm talking to you guys, more or less like a normal dude. And I said, no, I got a lot of emotional investment in this Mankind character. And by virtue of the fact that, I scared the crap out of most of the adults in here when they were children. Am I right? You guys brave enough to admit that? Okay, okay, good. I was a pretty scary presence. I remember I'd have my feelings hurt when someone from the Make-A-Wish Foundation would come back and I'd be like, how you doing there, little fella? And he would run away. There were two specific instances when I had the police called on me when I walked into a convenience store. And then Marty Jannetty had to tell me that I had large tufts of hair torn out of my head and a prominent black eye, and I may have evoked a little bit of suspicion. And the other one was after I was WWE champion, and I got a ticket. My plane ticket had the fare F on it. I've never seen an F-class fare in my life. I do B fares, Y fares, C fares, everything. And I remember asking Sean Waltman, his X-Pac, I said, what the hell is it? He said, that's a first class seat. I said, there must be some mistake. Why did they put me in first class? I said, because you're the WWE champion. I went, cool. And on that flight, now where I was sitting specifically next to businessmen who pay more money to not sit next to people who look like me, I looked over to see a very terrified looking businessman clinging to his briefcase. And when I got off, and I looked to the Undertaker who was sitting next to me, I said, hey, what's this guy's deal? And he goes, Jack. You always call me Jack. He just said, Jack, take a look at yourself. You have stitches over your eyebrows. You have parts of your hair torn out of your head, and you're wearing a sock with a happy face drawn on it. So, when I had a chance to address the audience as Mankind, the idea was I would tell 100% honest stories, but do them in character. And some of you follow me in social media and stuff, you know I sometimes take exception with some of the things that WWE does. For the most part, I love the show. I think the wrestlers are great. I think, if I can be critical for a second, they may overproduce things. They may overscript things, right? And when you do that, you take away the likelihood that you'll have a disaster on your hands. You're a non-fan?
That's because Stephanie's writing.
Oh, no, let's not pick on Stephanie. Okay? Are you a non-fan? Get here, okay, I'm about to lose you then, okay? All right, so what we do is, we will no longer have like absolutely disastrous segments. We're not likely, I'm going to put the earmuffs on the kids here just momentarily. Go ahead, put it on. We're not likely to hear the words, sweet Jesus, she has a penis. coming out of Mark Henry or any other wrestlers. You know, there's not going to be a disastrous date like that in the PG era. But I think when you overscript and you overproduce, you also take away the chances that there might be some type of magic unfolding before your very eyes. And to me, that's what's on display there in that room in Stamford, Connecticut in 1997. I've always been told by all, I'm not talking about all of the WWE superstars and Al Snow. I pick on Al a little bit. That in order to really become a star in WWE, Mr. McMahon had to personally become a fan of yours. Despite the fact that I've main evented a few pay-per-views, and I've main evented and sold out Madison Square Garden, I wasn't, in Mr. McMahon's eyes, a true superstar. Until that night. We sat down, just me and Jim Ross. He didn't know the answers, I didn't know the questions, and I started talking with complete and total honesty. And in this case, it seems unusual to think that I used to be a lacrosse player, right? I don't look like a lacrosse player. I was a goalie. I was very slow of foot, but I had good reflexes and was willing to take, if I say balls in any way, you guys are going to interpret it the wrong way, okay? I was willing to take hard spears to the body in a way that left me in quite a bit of pain. And we also had to do a lot of running as lacrosse players, and I was a horrible runner. Even before multiple knee surgeries, back surgeries, and considerable weight gain, I was one of the slowest guys in school, and the slowest guy in the team. So when I ran my laps, it was customary for me to take out my protective cup so I could be a little more comfortable in the running process. On almost every occasion, I remember to put the protective cup back in. On one particular afternoon, I failed to do that. I paid the ultimate price for it. And I'm going to take you back to that evening in 1997. I'm going to sit down, when I raise my head, I will have metamorphosized into the 1997 mankind, okay? Pretty cool. Guys, there's nothing wrong with getting goosebumps, right? You can even take a picture of this if you want. It's downright eerie, okay? Don't film it though, all right? And I'm going to talk about the aftermath of what happened on that field. Jimmy, I went down as if I'd been shot. But even though my testicle was the size of a grapefruit, I didn't even know it was there. I just heard a voice in the darkness say, "That was outstanding." And I was a made man in WWE from that point on. Even more importantly, Mr. McMahon, he took up my cause. At that time, he wasn't a character on TV, he was the announcer. Like he did the play-by-play, Jim Ross did the color commentary. Mr. McMahon, every week, because they decided to break this interview up into like 5 different sections, he would like tease the upcoming promo, and he'd go, "JR, we're going to be taking another look at that interview with Mankind. Should be interesting, given that story about his testicle." Because in 1997, no one had been able to use that dreaded T word on network TV or basic cable, to the point where even an Emmy Award-winning show like St. Elsewhere did a story on testicular cancer and weren't able to use the word. They literally had the kid go, "I have cancer down here." So when I became the pioneer and shattered that glass ceiling, it was Mr. McMahon who was like a kid with a new toy. And he started using it all the time, to the point when he did become a character on our show, he therefore claimed that it was he, not I, who possessed testicles the size of grapefruits. And you guys remember there was a certain point, defining point of, put the cameras down, because I'm going to talk ill of Mr. McMahon. I might want to work there again someday. There was a defining moment in 1997 in which he stopped being just the announcer and became a character. You guys remember what happened in 1997? What happened? Who did he screw?
Bret Hart.
Vince McMahon screwed Bret Hart. Not literally. Let me clear that up, okay? It wasn't like he had him bent over the ropes in Montreal. You really are the best there is. The best ever. And I had you until the spanking, right? And then I read your lips. and you just went like this, dear God, what am I doing here? Or something you're thinking that it is, right? What we're gonna do now, we're gonna hesitate for a little bit. I got some more stuff I'm gonna talk about, but we're gonna go to the Q&A part of the show, and then sometimes Q&A evokes like questions I wouldn't have ever thought of, brings up answers, and then sometimes the answers are so cool, like they become part of the show. So feel free to ask your questions. Great to have a cross-section of people asking questions. I do tend to favor the people wearing my own merchandise, I gotta be honest. But I'm always interested in a female perspective, especially if you're not a wrestling fan. I don't pick on anybody, honestly, I don't. You can look me up, honestly, if you're in the meet and greet, you can Google me. This is the truth, using the phrases Hell in a Cell, Hardcore Legend, and Feminist. Only guy in the world whose name pops up, alright? You can check it out on your smartphone. The last thing I want to do is make anybody feel uncomfortable at my shows, okay? Although I will say, the first night that I was in Saugus, there were these 4 people making a lot of noise, and I could tell what was going on. A couple was breaking up at the table during my show.
Oh, lovely.
And I said, are you guys breaking up? And then he said, no, it's just that your show is so effing boring, I almost fell asleep 3 times. And I said, I know Freud's theory of transference. You're taking out your anger on her, on me. So I'm not going to let that get to me. And I said, I hate to see anybody leave my show. But as long as people are leaving my show, I'm glad it's you. That's about the only time I'll pick up somebody. Young man, would you just hold that hand up to show me your sock, or do you have a question? Who was my biggest rival? Who is your favorite wrestler? My greatest rival was Shawn Michaels. Now, Shawn was definitely one of my favorite opponents, and I had one of my favorite matches of all time, Mind Games in 1996. Have you seen it? Now, I'm judging. Now, I don't try not to judge people, but I'm going to use the evidence at my disposal to guess that you weren't even born in that match. Come up, is it okay? Can you come up here a little closer? Yeah, come on up here, bud. And we want to thank you for making that sock for me. All right. All right, so your favorite wrestler, Shawn Michaels. How are you familiar with my Mind Games match if you were not born when it took place?
I watched it on YouTube.
On YouTube, excellent. And it was a good one, right? Shawn Michaels was amazing to wrestle with. But Shawn got hurt in '98. We didn't have that long run. We did have a good run on house shows, which are non-televised matches, some really good house shows. But if I had to pick a favorite opponent, given the fact that I would one day like to return to WWE, I'm going with Triple H. What, you just denying that we had amazing matches together? Were you there? You think I'm just throwing that out to pander to WWE? What, 2000? Wait, just back me up there with Royal Rumble, right? The Heck in a Cell, who's calling the Foley House? Don't want to use that word if I don't have to. We did have amazing matches. But I had great rivals. All those guys from the Attitude Era. Triple H, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I would honestly, the truth is, if it wasn't for The Undertaker, I wouldn't have been in that WWE Hall of Fame in April 2013. Would have been on that stage in Madison Square Garden, let alone on this stage, here, right here, in Sandwich, Massachusetts. Okay, who's got another question? Let me see, go, yes sir. Best coaster in New England, let me see. Keep in mind, I can't ride them anymore. It's one of the drawbacks of having had the head injuries. I did really enjoy Superman Ride of Steel at Agawam. But the last time that I stopped by Agawam on the way back from the White Mountains, a lot of you guys know that I go to the White Mountains every year. Even when we lived in Florida for 4 years, we vacationed in the White Mountains. And so I stopped by on the way home from the White Mountains, kind of cut the trip in half and rode some coasters, and didn't even come close to fitting on Superman Ride of Steel. And so I sent my daughter and my son, Mickey, who was a tall kid. You know, he was tall enough to get on, but he was only like 7 years old. And as he was ascending, I think it's like 208 feet, all I could think of, this was probably not a good idea. Anyway, you know, kids are resilient. He came around and started talking after a couple days. John Candy. He was actually absolutely terrified of that ride. I have a long-standing tradition where I pretend to be scared on every log flume that I do. So we have these photo albums filled with like 15 years. Honestly, I'm going up those hills, I'm like, okay, what new scared face could I use? And I actually did a book. I was supposed to go to a Christmas party, but along the way I saw like a Walgreens, and I made one of those photo books and made up the poem on the spot, you know? And it said, "Why is Dad so scared?" You know, the first time I rode a coaster, I was not prepared to see my father crying. Why is Dad so scared? And he said, I really don't understand it. By this time, I've stopped counting how many tears that guy has shed while going down Splash Mountain. Pretty good, right? And then at the end, he says, but something about, something about the Superman ride, or that awful time on Santa's lap, something, scared, I prepared. I guess it's just from time to time all of us get scared. So, that was, and so I have that photo in the book, Why is Dad So Scared? So that was probably my favorite one. I can't do the wooden coasters at all anymore. I really can't, that was a downer for me when I realized that that was one of the byproducts of doing so many things that weren't good for me during the course of my career. Good depressing question though, thank you. All right, let me see. There's a gentleman there with his hand up, waiting patiently. Go ahead.
What's the most fun you've ever had with any storyline event park?
Oh man, I tended to have fun with a lot of storylines, you know, and you can find humor even in like the most serious storylines. There was one day in particular, and it's one of those things. Completely it's no longer appropriate at all, you know, to do what I did that night. But we wrestled and we were doing like a 5-man match. I think it was me, Austin, Kane, maybe only 4 people, The Rock. And The Rock would go out there when he was a bad guy, and he would go, well, let me tell you something, The Rock's gonna lay this Smackdown on Kane's big red retarded ass. Steve Austin, you bring your monkey ass out here, and Mankind, if you can fit through the doorway, bring your fat ass out here alive. So I got out there and I said, I don't know, Rock, it seems to me that you like to talk about men's asses a lot. And so maybe what the fans say is true, maybe The Rock really does suck after all. No longer appropriate, right? But this was 16 years ago. And it was so funny because he was such a naturally gifted performer, and there's no way, even for kids in here, you just can't go with the time-honored, fist, tongue-in-cheek, oral sex. You just can't do that in the PC era. And so when I would accuse The Rock would steadfastly deny it, and in denying it, he would grab his own, like, gigantic phallus and claim that that's exactly what he was not doing. And the next day in Milwaukee, we had an afternoon show, and he was like, oh, that was so funny last night. He goes, you know what was really funny? We really overplayed it. And ended up, just think, for those of you who dabbled and gone on the internet and see how these scenes usually conclude, you know, there are some exceptions. They conclude pretty much the same way. And he did a little visual of what that might look like. And when I got out there to do my promo in Milwaukee, all I could think of was, kids, cover the ears, all I could think of was The Rock with a giant load on his face.
Oh my God.
It's the largest penis ever seen by mankind. And I'm not talking about the wrestling dude either. And I got ready to talk, and I just started laughing. I could not control myself. And it was, and I'm afraid that the fans are going to be angry because I looked at referee Earl Hebner's face was bright red. He was laughing so hard. And I looked at Kane and his mask was moving up and down. And Stone Cold, he never wanted to see him with break character, so he had his head like buried on the turnbuckle, but I could see those huge lat muscles bouncing up and down. And I just looked out at the crowd thinking that they were going to be upset, and instead like they were laughing along too. And so it showed me people like to know that we love what they're doing. I remember when a couple times as a concert goer, seeing a couple acts when I was sitting like off on the side of the stage, and they do their thing to the crowd, and then they turn and they make motions, and it was like, I don't even think this guy wants to be out there. And then I saw Springsteen play in Atlanta, and the stand for the saxophone went out on Born to Run. It's like the last song he's playing, and Bruce went out there and he actually held the saxophone up, and I thought he'd be angry, and when he turned, I was to the side of the stage, and he was laughing hysterically. And I always took that as a sign that was a guy who really loved what he did. And that's kind of what I took from that moment, is that if people were watching that match, they would know that we loved what we did too. So that was probably the funniest moment I had, not necessarily the funniest story though. Okay, a female question? Anyone brave enough? Oh, we got lots of females, right? We'll go with the young lady in the sweater and then in the back, okay? Go ahead. If I could wrestle a female wrestler, I've never really thought about that. Who do you think it would be? Who would you like? Who? Moolah. That'd be a tough match to pull off right now.
She passed away.
Oh.
I would have to do some digging. I don't know. A lot of you guys know I'm a major fan of the NXT women. I think that Sasha Banks and Bayley are going to have an amazing match on Wednesday. If you don't have the network, and some of you, I don't hear a lot of cheering, if you don't know who they are, please don't judge the boss by what you've seen on Smackdown and USA. When she gets a chance to have her match her way, it's magical. It really is. And 2 nights ago, when I was in Saugus, one of her best friends came to the show and said, I have a gift for you from the boss. And it was a set of Christmas ornaments that she had picked out for me. And I was like 3 days from now, I'm going to be in front of that TV park, and I'm just going to be, honestly, I'm going to be counting on her to create something magical. Honestly, like I did when I was a kid, and I used to, was getting to know wrestling, so I knew who the good wrestlers were and what it was that constituted a good match. I didn't know how they went about having those good matches. But anyone who turns me into a fan, like the women of NXT, has something special to offer. So I would go, I wouldn't wrestle her. That'd be kind of creepy, I don't know. I did, in the weirdest way, I was very uncomfortable when I had to wrestle China. But then when I did, she smelled so good. She really did. Her skin was so soft and she was so muscular that it was like working with a really well-built gay dude. So they take better care of their skin than guys that do. I think it's okay to make statements like that as long as they're positive ones, right? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. All right. And then the young lady back there. Oh man, it's weird because at the time I didn't realize how much fun it was to be the lighter-hearted Mankind, because there was that part of me that really wanted to be the guy who was delivering like the shock and awe type of matches, And it wasn't really until later on when The Rock and I talked about it. Aside from the Cell match, the next closest thing I get is the moments of the Rock and Sock connection. And the Rock and Sock connection had a profound effect on me for 2 major reasons, okay? First of all, because I realized that it was just as valuable to make people laugh as it was to make them wince or cringe. And second, when I was watching WWE Countdown, where The Rock and I were voted on as being the 4th greatest tag team in WWE history, despite only teaming up for 10 weeks, I watched in horror as over the years, we saw me with these fashion displays, from the Native American fringe jacket that was offensive to every Native American, to the bright blue sweatpants I wore when I was The Rock's tag team partner, to the ill-fitting sports coat that I had to wear when I was a WWE ambassador. And I literally yelled out, I didn't yell it out, but I said it in my living room. I said, I might as well start wearing a fanny pack. And so I did. It's not like the fanny pack is getting in the way of the perfect sweatpants, flannel shirt accessory, you know? So I wear this, and now I can basically travel for weeks at a time with what I have on my person, so works out pretty good. What was your favorite?
Honestly, in my opinion, I like all three for different reasons, but Mankind is my absolute favorite from the beginning because of the psychology you brought to the character.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I put a lot of thought into promos and matches, and so it's really flattering when you do have a young man like this who wasn't even alive and they think that the matches are cool, you know. So thank you very much. All right, let me see. I gotta go with the guy with the ECW shirt, but not just yet. We're gonna go with this. Hold on, we're gonna go this way. And just to show there's no hard feelings, we'll go with the young man with the Laconia shirt, and then we'll go with ECW guys. Okay, go ahead.
What?
Just wondering your overall feeling of fan perspective, because I've heard different arguments.
It sounds to me like you're going to want an answer far more honest than I'm willing to give.
No, just what you thought about the Attitude Era, fans' perspective.
Oh, the Attitude Era. Well, I mean, the Attitude Era, I'm so glad I was part of it. It bothers me a little bit when people just dismiss the current product, and go, oh, the Attitude Era ruled. Like, yeah, the Attitude Era ruled. There's been a lot of rotten stuff during the Attitude Era, too. Like I mentioned, Mark Henry date that didn't go well. The incident where Kai and Tai apparently chopped off a vital body part of Val Venus's. And what was funny about that was WWE actually brought in John Wayne Bobbitt, who was notorious for having had that similar body part chopped off, and they managed to find it and resurrect it. And that was actually what was on my mind when I lost my ear in Munich, Germany. I was like, oh, how bad could this be? They put Bobbitt back together. And what I didn't realize is that his had been cut off, whereas mine had been pushed off, making reattachment virtually impossible. But when Bobbitt came to WWE, they had a sign on the door, John Wayne Bobbitt, dressing room, and it was a huge dressing room all to himself. I believe it was Sean Waltman who took that sign off of that door and put it on the door of a broom closet. And for the rest of the night, John Wayne Bobbitt changed in a broom closet. Yeah, so there was some rotten stuff, especially the excuse, where do you go from there? And then they said he missed with the chop. I mean, there was some bad stuff in there, but some great stuff as well. But I love being part of it. That you can definitely try out whatever you wanted to do. There's so much more freedom. Even when I was the commissioner, and I started, and nobody said, hey, how about you lose all pretext of being a tough guy and just start coming up with stuff on your own. Even when I knew Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe were about to enter the room, they were Vince McMahon's stooges, and they had a cactus plant on the desk, and they said, okay, we're rolling in 3, 2, and as soon as they aired, I poked my finger twice on the cactus plant. I went, oh, 2 bricks! And when they came walking in, I said, just talking about you guys. And if we did that now, they would completely, God, what the heck is wrong with you? And at that point, yeah, that's fine, go with it, go. So we had a freedom that the guys today don't have, and I really enjoyed that. Okay, go, sir.
All right. Hey, when I first saw you back in, I think it was 89 or 90 in WCW, you started off with the name Cactus Jack Manson.
Yeah.
And I was just curious why you never continued with that. And my other thing was Buzz Sawyer a big part of who you became, your persona?
No, honestly, Buzz was not. I mean, I know he did like a wild man thing, and for a short while, Buzz and I were part of Sullivan's Slaughterhouse. And Buzz, honestly, he didn't like me. And then Buzz, he broke his wrist in half at Night of the Champions, and I don't think he ever wrestled again. And Kevin and I started teaming up, but I never consciously took anything from Buzz Sawyer. I did consciously rip off Maniac Matt Bourne, believe it or not. especially the way that he sold as a good guy. Like he had his fighting style, like he really had to work. It was like trying to lasso a bull, you know, like he was in constant motion. And even though I don't appear to embody constant motion, you know, people had to work a little bit to get me down and keep me there. And I think those things, more so than Matt Bourne, you know, I just completely borrowed from the Terry Funk library with his blessing. And so to this day, you know, I'll see Bubba Ray Dudley and he'll go, "You're nothing but a cheap, second-rate Terry Funk ripoff." And I go, "Yeah, maybe so, but as far as cheap, second-rate Terry Funk ripoffs go, I was pretty good." So I borrowed from those guys pretty liberally. All right?
What about the Jack Manson?
Oh yeah, the Manson thing. Man, you know, you don't always get to make your own decisions, and this is why if anybody saw me apologizing to Tough Amanda for things I said, being really critical of her, because I came to realize we don't always get to say what we want, and it's really hard to fight battles, especially if you think your job, let alone $250,000, might be on the line. In that case, you know, Robert Fuller would tell me, "You know what you look like? You look like that Manson fella." And then I was like, I don't really want to be associated with the killer. He's like, "Jacko, let me tell you something, a gimmick like that could go a long way." And then he told that to Eric Embry, who was the booker in World Class Championship Wrestling. "Don't you look like that Manson fella?" When I went to World Class Championship Wrestling, without my knowledge, I came down to the ring and I was Cactus Jack Manson. You know, and like I said, I could have said, "Look, I don't feel comfortable being affiliated," but I didn't say anything. I was just so happy to have a job. I haven't played into it for a while. I mean, I did play into it. And then when I had the ability to make up my own, you know, to kind of blaze my own path, we got rid of the Manson and I was just Cactus Jack. Would have been easier to do it the other way, but I really didn't want to go that direction. You know, kind of like feel uneasy even being asked about it, you know. But it was part of what I did, you know. So, and then who was coming up with the next question? All right, go ahead.
Your toughest opponent, Undertaker or Terry Funk?
They're both toughest opponent, Undertaker, Terry Funk, both very tough for different reasons. I'm really proud of the match that I had with Terry Funk, especially in Japan. We did so many things to each other that would have gotten us arrested in most states in this country. And we did them like in front of small audiences and freezing buildings in Japan in order to try to build up our little company there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tie in a Terry Funk / Undertaker story for you, okay? And then we'll take a couple more questions and we'll take it home and do the meet and greet. And I've learned, you know, along the way when people would say like, "Why didn't you tell the Hell in a Cell story?" I go, "Well, I told that last time." Like, that's what we want to hear. So for me, it would be like, you know, going to see George Carlin back in the day and not having him allude to the 7 dirty words, you know. And for every guy who's like, "He told that story before," there's like 12 people going, "I hope he tells that story again." And especially because now I can put a little twist on it. Because the last time I was here, did I tell the Cell story last time I was here? No, I didn't, right? I don't think I did. Did I? We got a debate going on. Roger says no, you say yes? All right, well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to tell it in a different way. I'll put a little twist on it, okay? Because if I was here in May, I hadn't had my show in Austin, Texas in the summer, and there was rumor that The Undertaker might appear at my show. And I didn't believe it. And people would be like, "Well, why didn't you just text him? Aren't you guys friends?" And I'll say, "No." They say, "You're not friends with The Undertaker?" "No." Like, I don't text The Undertaker. As far as I know, he doesn't email. And God help me, I don't want to live in the type of world where The Undertaker starts tweeting. Imagine that? You're just looking at your screen and seeing LOL, the dead man, little emojicon smile. That'd be kind of like a buzzkill. And so I just heard he might be there, and I didn't believe it until security came and said, "Undertaker's here," open up that door, and in walks this massive frame. And we sat down and we talked, and we realized that, all right, maybe we don't exchange Christmas cards or text messages, but that match, are you aware of what the match was in June 1998? Pretty infamous. I'll give you a little bit of detail so you don't get lost here. That match kind of bound us, you know, forever. This is a bond that will outlast us both, you know. And I also forgot, and most of you probably have too, or never knew to begin with, The Undertaker entered that match under a precarious situation. Anyone remember what was going on with him? He had a broken freaking ankle. Went into the most dangerous match ever devised, okay? So just keep that in mind. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you back to that night. The cell that we talked about was a massive steel structure, rumored to be upwards of 40 feet in the air. It was a legitimate 16 feet. But after you've been thrown off of a structure 6 feet higher than a basketball rim, there's no need to exaggerate. I also learned along the way not to say I was tossed off in the United Kingdom. It means something different over there. None of us want to think of the Undertaker that way. And so I'm going to take you back. I've been thrown off that massive structure the first time. Right? And they came and they got a gurney, which is a stretcher on wheels again, wheeling me up that aisle. Everybody thought the match was over. Nobody would have thought less of me if it had been, you know. But I found the fortitude, as we refer to it in professional wrestling. I got off that stretcher. The adrenaline rush was amazing when they realized he's going back up the cell. But I was so messed up. I had a hard time climbing. You know, it was a slow journey. I'm not going to lie to you. But it was a journey accompanied by a certain peace of mind. And it's a peace of mind that can only come from knowing, absolutely knowing, that the worst part of my night was over with. No. That was my bad. Things got a lot worse. The Undertaker chokeslammed me on top of that cell. My body went through that like a hot knife through butter. I was knocked out, like unconscious upon impact. And back in 1998, like we didn't stop matches, right? Now we do. That match, same thing happened today. A guy goes through a cell, he's knocked unconscious, and we stop the match, right? That's the right thing, the responsible thing. In a weird way, I was fortunate that it was not the call that was made that night. Because had that match been stopped, nobody would have been talking about it a month after the fact, let alone 17 years. Because that time we didn't stop matches, we bought time. And it was in the hopes of buying me time that Terry Funk, with an N, entered the ring. And it was then that words were shared between he and the Undertaker that would give you chills. I didn't even know about it until I was inducted into the Hall of Fame. I'd seen that there were words exchanged, never knew what they were. They were just said so casually. And Terry's out there on the stage at Madison Square Garden giving me my induction speech, and he said that the Undertaker walked by, turned his head, and casually said, "See if he's alive." If he's alive. You know how fortunate I was to have been unconscious at that point. Or had I been just emerging from a cloud of unconsciousness and heard that voice say, "See if he's alive," it scared the crap out of me. Terry, you can actually look, he goes over and checks my vital signs. Reports back to the Undertaker that he's still breathing. And so the Undertaker chokeslammed Terry Funk. In the process, Terry's shoes came off his feet. So after I emerged from unconsciousness, rolling very slowly over to my stomach, after 92 seconds, my next bodily move was a bob of my head. The reason I bobbed my head is my first conscious thought was, where'd those shoes come from? Those shoes. But like it or not, this is like a different telling of the story, right? This is based solely on that experience of the Undertaker. Examine the evidence at hand, okay? Because I bring to you the proposal that this was not a match about one human being being me. It's not even about two human beings being me and the Undertaker. It's a tale of three human beings. Me, Undertaker, Terry Funk. One human being who entered the most dangerous match ever devised with a broken freaking ankle, who then chokeslammed a second human being out of his shoes in order to buy time for a third human being previously thought to be deceased so that he might regain consciousness to continue a fake wrestling match. Thank you. All right. A few more questions? This turned out to be pretty pleasant, right? Yeah. I haven't even needed that F-bomb right yet, right? Yeah. I have it there if I need it. It's like my finishing move. It's like Randy Orton's RKO. When it happens, it's out of nowhere. How did I use it last year? Who was here last year? How did I use the F-bomb? Do you remember? Oh yeah, Tori Amos song, Pain, listening. Okay, I won't do it that way, all right? I won't do it that way, even though it's a good story. Good memory, young man. Okay. All right, guy in the shirt here, and then, oh, you asked the question already, right?
Yeah, I did. I asked you only went up on the Undertaker, but you didn't. You kind of dust Terry fucking up.
I thought I talked about Terry pretty thoroughly there. I just talked about all the stuff we did in Japan. I think I gave a satisfactory answer. I'm going to stick with that. All right, young man there. Then we'll go with the KO shirt. We'll finish up with the young man with the Cactus Jack shirt, okay?
Looking at the mid-roster today in the WWE, what would you say has the most potential?
Looking at which roster?
The mid-card.
Oh, the mid-card roster? Oh, man. A couple weeks ago, I was asked like, what I would do if I could change one thing. And I said, oh, simple, push Cesaro. And then I thought, all right, it's probably going to get reported on. As long as it's going to get reported on, I might as well report it. So I did a little article called Push Cesaro. I think that guy's amazing, I do. And I think he kind of evokes like the quiet world champions of years gone by, who everybody knew could wrestle anybody in any style. He speaks 5 languages. I mean, the guy could be an amazing international superstar. And Mr. McMahon just realized that connecting with the audience comes in different shapes and forms. If you have 1,000 people bringing signs that say Cesaro section, you're connecting with the audience. It reminds me of when I was sent home. I had a book out called The Hardcore Diaries, and WWE had me on TV for one day, 4 weeks into the book's run, and then they sent me home because Mr. McMahon said I no longer connected with the audience. So when the book editor called me and said, I thought you were going to be on Raw, I said, no, I'm not going to be on TV. She said, why not? I said, they say I don't connect with the audience. She said, if you don't connect with the audience, you're number 5 on the New York Times bestseller list. And I was like, it's not my fault. So it's not my fault, but my feeling is that like guys like Steve Austin, just Steve Austin, it was just me, that's, we're kind of powerless. But it's Austin and it's me and some of the other wrestlers get on board. We might just change his mind. So between Cesaro and Kevin Owens, if they do anything with this like literal gift from the wrestling gods with Dolph Ziggler, I had no idea that he had dated Nikki Bella for 5 years. This would be like amazing if they committed to it. It's all about commitment. It's like Mr. Miyagi said, stand on one side of the road, you're fine, stand on the other, stand in the middle, squash like grapes. So if they commit, you either don't do it or you do it all the way. You don't do anything halfway. And that's the problem sometimes, I think. Okay, KO finish.
There was a video a while back when Ambrose was still in CCW where he confronted you. Was there ever an actual beef there, or was that more of a promotional part?
Oh yeah. It was kind of groundbreaking, right? Like video thing. I just knew he was going to come up and say something to me. I didn't know he was going to be that scary. Because he was like a weird dude. And so we did do that thing, and there was a plan to do a match at SummerSlam. And what happened is he started like sending out these messages about like seeing my family starve and losing my house. And I'd just come back from having a full like physical exam and found out my back was in much worse shape than I ever counted on. I knew it was going to be in bad shape. I came back, I was pretty stunned by the damage that all those years had done. And so I was, looking at this stuff pretty seriously. And so I wanted to tell him he could say whatever he wanted to me, but to leave my family out of it. So I grabbed Dusty, who I knew had helped train him in FCW. I said, Dream, will you come up to me to talk to Dean Ambrose? And when I said Dean, like he jumped over the guardrail and ran away, which is like the scariest thing you could do, right? And I said, no, Dean, come back here, man. Come back here. I said, seriously, just please don't talk about my family, just keep them out of it. And he said, okay. And he took that as a sign to me, because I'd done it in front of the guys, to really push the accelerator on the family.
Oh, no.
And I started seeing these messages about my family. I got really angry. I started sending these text messages stop it, man. And Dean, cut it out. I'm telling you, man to man, leave my family out of it. And then I started going, you listen, you son of a, son of a bitch, look, what did it take to get through to Mick Foley? And I called up WWE and I said, this thing's off, man. If I can't trust him with something as simple as that, how in the world am I supposed to trust him with my body? And then I specifically remember going to the wake for one of for my son's teacher's father, and I got a bunch of text messages from Dean, and he said, I just got back from the United Kingdom where I had no phone coverage, and he hadn't gotten any of my text messages. To say he felt bad would be to put it lightly, and we were going to have a match, we really were, and then I got the call from the Boston Center of Traumatic Encephalopathy saying that I should never wrestle again, and that was, so my career ended with a handshake with Dr. Cantu, and it was a major relief. We would have had a good match, I really think we would have had a good match, but it never happened. In retrospect, probably the best thing that could have happened for him, because had he wrestled me, there would have been no Shield, right? And those guys had that great run, and Ambrose has such credibility that no matter what they do to him, all he needs is one big win, and people are going to be on his side. And I don't think we've seen the best of Ambrose until he does a major turn and gets to cut those heel promos that he probably has coming for him. All right, does that sound good? All right, so listen, what I'm going to do, I meant to tell this story last night, and I didn't. Because I had John Cena Sr. with me, and I brought him up, and I thought of a different way to go home. And I'm going to take you back to the Royal Rumble 2014, which is kind of a messed up Royal Rumble, right? That's the one where Daniel Bryan wasn't even entered into the Rumble. Clearly, the WWE wasn't on the same page as their fans. I was so upset, and I remember texting Brie Bella and saying, man, this is so messed up. I said, I'm gonna text Mr. McMahon and tell him how wrong this whole thing is, and tell Bryan, even though I know he's not a hugger. That's the rib on the whole Daniel Bryan hugging thing, is that in real life he didn't hug anyone. So WWE turned him into a hugger on TV. And I said, tell Bryan, which is his real name, that if I was there, I'd give him a big hug and tell him how messed up this thing is. And I didn't know how to copy and paste, on an iPhone. I just got the iPhone. So I handed the phone to my son. He goes, Dad, you just sent that message to Vince McMahon. I went, oops. So the second message I sent to Mr. McMahon in 8 months was, as you might tell, that wasn't meant for you. How's everything going? But I texted two other people that night. I texted, get ready to go. So I'm going to use this microphone stand.
You want anything else? Or?
No. Take another Sprite.
Yeah, Sprite, but can I get you?
I'll just lay the microphone down on the chair when I'm done. I texted three people. Texted Brie Bella, my way of getting hold of Daniel Bryan. I texted Dolph Ziggler. I texted CM Punk, who told me he didn't think he was coming back that next day. He didn't and never did. And my kids were stunned to see that all three of these people got back to me within 2 minutes. Especially the younger kids. They were like, Dad, why do they do that? I said, why do they do what? He goes, why do they get back to you so soon? And I looked at them, I said, you don't know? And they said, no. I said, kids, I'm Mick fucking Foley.